She hunts, she bleeds, she starves, but no one remembers her name. This is the story of the most important predator you've never truly seen. She's the engine behind every hunt, the protector of every cub, the backbone of every lion pride. And yet when she dies, not even the vultures pause. While male lions sleep in the spotlight, she's the one dragging broken bones through thorn bush, raising her young alone and fending off hyenas in the dark. But here's what no one tells you. Lionesses don't retire, they vanish. And the most shocking part? Even when they're too injured to hunt, too weak to roar, the pride still survives because she once lived. But wait until you see what happens when she fights back. The sun hovers low over the savannah, bleeding its last light across a land drenched in gold and dust. The heat still clings to the earth like an old curse, shimmering in the air and crackling underfoot as beetles scurry to find shade. Acacia shadows stretch long and thin, drawn like knives across the tall grasses. Somewhere in the haze, vultures circle lazily above an unseen carcass, their wings glinting in amber. But down here, beneath the golden veil of twilight, a lioness moves. Not with the pomp of a queen on parade, but with the tired elegance of a worker leaving late, back arched, paws soft, breath low, eyes hard. She doesn't walk like royalty because she's not. In the kingdom of lions, the crown weighs nothing on her head. She is not the king, she is not even the myth. She is the machinery, quiet, unsung, indispensable. She carries the pride not with dominance but with her ribs, her blood, and her hunger. Tonight she is hunting again. The males are asleep, draped like spoiled statues across the brush, bellies full from yesterday's kill she bled to earn. Their manes twitch with flies, their ears flick at nothing. A younger female grooms a cub nearby, licking the dirt from its tiny face. But our lioness walks away from them all, not out of loneliness, but out of necessity. The wind has shifted, whispering secrets through the grass, and the impalas are moving toward the river again. Her shoulder brushes the bark of a fever tree, its scent sharp like citrus and rot. A tick wriggles across her jawline, ignored. Every muscle in her body is a thread pulled taut. She knows the cost of failure. A failed hunt means more than hunger. It means vulnerability. It means watching the bones of your cub's hips push against its skin as it nurses on air. It means another night of waiting for vultures to finish, just so you can pick at scraps the hyenas haven't soiled. And still, she hunts. But the hunt, contrary to nature documentaries that favor the thrill of the kill, is mostly waiting, and walking, and watching. Hours of silence, of crouching through thorns that leave thin red signatures down her flanks, of reading the way a zebra's ear twitches, of sensing that one wildebeest is limping just slightly behind the herd. She does not sprint, she does not roar, she doesn't even breathe loudly. Most of her power lies in knowing exactly when not to move. Suddenly a rustle, not from her, from the prey. A group of warthogs digging obliviously in the sand catch her attention. Not her first choice, too small, too fast, too armed with tusks and attitude. But tonight, the impalas are too sharp-eyed, and her cubs are too hungry to be picky. She lowers her body to the earth, flattening herself so precisely that her shoulder blades vanish into the grass. Her tail twitches once, the only betrayal of her excitement. There's something almost comical about the warthogs, with their stiff tails raised like antennae and their ridiculous snorts. Until you remember they can gut a lion with a well-placed charge. But she knows that. She's done this before. She inches forward like a shadow learning to walk. The ambush lasts less than 10 seconds. Dust explodes. The warthogs scatter. One turns at the last second, squealing, and bolts toward the underbrush. But it's too late. Her jaws clamp shut just behind the skull, the sound muffled, almost intimate. A brief savage struggle, then silence. And here lies the irony of the savannah. She has risked her life for a meal that will feed the pride, yet she will eat last. The males will saunter up after the commotion, fresh from their nap, and push her aside with barely a glance. The cubs will whimper and sneak bites where they can. She will lick blood from her paw and pretend she isn't starving. This is the invisible truth behind the lion's myth. The male is the icon, the photograph, the roar on a tourism poster. But the lioness, she is the architecture. She tracks, she kills, she raises every cub, she defends against hyenas in the dark. And when the males fall, it is she who decides whether to flee or to fight. Her decisions shape the pride's fate, yet her name will never appear in folklore, not unless she dies spectacularly. And when she dies, And she will, perhaps from a shattered rib puncturing her lung mid-hunt, or from infection, or from being trampled while defending a cub. The pride will move on. The males may mate again. The sisters may steal her territory. Her cubs may be killed by the next takeover. Her memory will vanish beneath the sun-cracked soil, as if she was never more than another blur in the grass. Yet, even in this injustice, there is majesty. Her glory isn't in crowns or monuments. It's in that long breath before a charge. It's in the moment she stands between a snorting buffalo and her tiny, terrified cub. It's in the way her scars are hidden beneath fur, but earned in silence. She rules no land, yet everything moves because she does. And tomorrow, she will hunt again. But not every lioness makes it to tomorrow. Some vanish into the darkness, swallowed by the very bush they used to command. Others are forced out by younger, faster females, exiled into the dry zones where water smells of decay and predators don't share. There, a lioness must choose whether to starve with dignity or steal with desperation. Some choose both. In the next chapter, we follow one such lioness, not a queen of a pride, but a wandering shadow. She hunts alone now for a different reason. Not for cubs, not for glory, but for the simplest thing in nature, survival. And in her solitude, we'll discover how pain becomes power. The morning arrives not with gentle light, but with the crackling urgency of survival. The savannah stirs under a thin veil of mist, the kind that hugs the grass low and hides both predator and prey in a soft deception. Somewhere in the distance, a guinea fowl squawks its disapproval of the sun's return, flapping through the thorny underbrush like a disgruntled feathered alarm clock. Dew clings to everything, to leaves, to stones, to the ragged ear of a lioness crouched in silence beside a termite mound, her breath steaming in the early chill. She does not blink, she does not stretch. Already her world is a ledger of calculations, wind direction, hoof prints, the way the gazelle herd tightens when a calf sneezes. There is no room for wonder here, only work. Among lions there are no gentle mornings. There are only opportunities not to die. What documentaries often fail to mention, or choose to overlook for the sake of drama, is that most of a lioness's life is deeply, exhaustingly unfair. Not in the emotional sense that humans lament, but in the brutal arithmetic of energy spent versus energy earned. Her bones carry the weight of every hunt. Her skin bears the tears of thorns, the bruises of hooves, the deep punctures of a rival's teeth. She is muscle-stitched to necessity. And yet, when the kill is finally made, after hours of crawling through sand, timing wind, dodging alarm calls and sudden stampedes, she will not be the first to feed. That privilege belongs to someone else. The lion, with his mane like a crown of wildfire and a swagger that suggests divine right, will arrive last to the battlefield and dine first. He is beautiful, yes, a living sculpture of strength and power, but his job is not to earn the meal, his job is to take it. A lioness may risk her life bringing down a fully grown zebra, each kick a potential death sentence, and still find herself nudged away by a male whose only contribution was snoring in the shade until the smell of blood reached his nose. There's a kind of humor in that, if you squint past the tragedy. Nature, for all its elegance, has a fondness for irony. The lioness, the provider, the protector, the relentless engine of the pride's survival, must wait her turn like a servant at her own banquet. The males, meanwhile, will eat until they swell like golden ticks, and then collapse beside the carcass in post-feast lethargy, occasionally swatting at flies with more effort than they gave to the hunt. But the imbalance goes deeper than dining etiquette. Lionesses suffer a disproportionate share of injury. Every hunt is a gamble played at full speed, and the odds are not in her favor. A zebra's hind kick can snap ribs like twigs. A buffalo's horn can impale her mid-charge. The ground itself is a hazard. Gopher holes, thorn branches, sudden gullies hidden in tall grass. She is expected to run through all of it with grace and silence, and if she limps afterward, the pride does not wait. There are no crutches in the savannah, no retirement plans. A lioness who cannot hunt becomes a liability, a whisper of weakness in a world that roars for strength, and yet they keep going. Because the lioness is not just a hunter, she is also a mother, a sentry, a teacher, and in many cases, a martyr. She births alone, often in hiding, licking the slick fur of her cubs in a den she may have to abandon within days if danger finds her. She'll nurse while injured, starve while lactating, and snarl through pain if another predator dares come too close. And still, the males are the kings. Male lions do fight, it's true, but not as often as imagined, and rarely for food. They fight for mating rights, for territory, for the chance to pass on their genes, and then leave the rest to fate and females. Their battles are quick, violent, and strategic. They do not bleed unless it's worth it. Lionesses, however, bleed often, and not always from battle. Their cycles, their births, their feeding order, everything about them is built to sacrifice. They are, quite literally, built to bleed. It's a paradox of lion society. The ones who do the most are given the least recognition. In fact, science long perpetuated the myth that male lions were the primary hunters, simply because they looked more fearsome. It wasn't until deeper behavioral studies and relentless field observation dismantled that lie, showing that lionesses hunt over 80% of the pride's food, often without male assistance. The very survival of the species depends on their effort. But outside the circle of zoologists and conservationists, the myth remains. The lion roars, and the world listens. The lioness works, and the world watches the male yawn. Even their injuries tell a story. Males often bear wounds on the face and neck, symbols of status, of fighting for dominance. But lionesses are wounded on the legs, flanks, belly, the marks of labor, not power. Each scar whispers of chases that nearly killed them, of cubs carried through fire and thorns, of kills won and then stolen. And yet, despite this endless labor, the lioness holds no formal power in the pride. She may be respected for age, for hunting skill, for mothering prowess, but she is not the ruler. She is the foundation, the scaffolding, the pillar. Break her, and the pride collapses. But while she stands, she does so in shadow. Sometimes the savannah offers moments of poetic reversal. There are prides where an aging lioness, once on the edge of exile, becomes the unexpected matriarch, her experience outweighing her wounds. Or a pride where the male is ousted, and for weeks the females rule the plains alone, hunting, guarding, even mating on their terms. Brief windows into what a matriarchal lion kingdom might look like. But these moments are fleeting. Nature rarely entertains revolutions for long. And yet, even within the rigid structure of lion society, lionesses find small triumphs. They raise cubs that survive, they orchestrate hunts with near-military precision, and sometimes, just sometimes, they steal the first bite from under a sleeping male's nose. A silent rebellion, a momentary reclaiming of what was always theirs. But such victories are brief. Tomorrow the sun will rise again, and the hierarchy will reset. The males will yawn, the cubs will cry, and the lioness will vanish once more into the grass, shoulders tight, breath measured, eyes locked on some creature that hasn't yet realized it will be dinner. She will hunt again. She will bleed again, and she will do so with no audience, no applause, and no crown. In the next chapter, we follow her into one of the most heartbreaking cycles of all, the raising of her cubs under the shadow of betrayal. Because even motherhood, the one thing nature seems to reward, comes with its own savagery. And in the world of lions, no bond is sacred when power is on the line. The sky is bruised with stormlight, a darkening canvas streaked with orange and ash as the afternoon wind thickens with the smell of wet earth and oncoming rain. Thunder murmurs from the horizon, not yet a threat but a promise, and the tall grass bends like a sea of secrets around a hidden hollow beneath a thorn bush. Here, cloaked in the trembling shadows of twilight and thorns, a lioness lies utterly still, save for the occasional twitch of her ear or a quiet flick of her tail to discourage flies. Her belly rises and falls slowly, each breath wrapped around something fragile. Beside her, tucked against the soft warmth of her flank, are 3 cubs, blind still, milk-drunk and dreaming. To the outside world, this is a tranquil scene. But in truth, she is not resting. She is listening. In the wild theater of the savannah, birth is not the beginning of life. It's the beginning of hiding. A lioness births in silence, away from the pride, away from the roaring males and their unpredictable tempers. She will isolate herself for weeks, licking her cubs clean of scent, moving them constantly to evade snakes, leopards, hyenas, and worse, other lions. Her ears are tuned to every rustle, every bird call, every crunch of distant footfall, because in this world, the most dangerous creature to a lion cub is not the hyena, it is his own kind. Infanticide among lions is not a fluke or a footnote in their behavior. It is a strategy, calculated, cruel, and horrifyingly effective. When a new coalition of males takes over a pride, they do not adopt the cubs of the previous kings. They eliminate them, quickly, efficiently. This ruthless purge isn't driven by hatred, but biology. As long as cubs nurse, their mothers won't come into heat. By killing the offspring, males trigger ovulation, ensuring their own genes are passed on. To a lioness, this is the ultimate betrayal coded into the very rules of her world. She raises her cubs alone, hides them, nourishes them, and when she finally dares to bring them to the pride, the place that should protect them, she risks leading them to their executioners. It happens fast, often under cover of early dawn, when shadows still stretch long and dew weighs heavy on the grass. A new male strides into the pride's heart, young, muscular, full of promise and menace. His mane is shorter than the ousted rulers, his frame leaner, his aggression untested. But he does not waste time. The moment he senses unfamiliar cubs, the chase begins. Mothers snarl and block, circle their cubs with their bodies, snap and claw. But they are smaller, and they know they cannot win. Some try to carry cubs away in their jaws, running through bushland with the limp weight of a child between their teeth. Others attempt to deceive, dragging the cubs to a neighboring pride's edge, or trying to mask their scent by rolling them in dung or soil. And some, in a moment too cruel to imagine, will abandon the cubs entirely to save themselves, not from cowardice, but from evolutionary despair. The lioness we follow today is no stranger to this ritual. This is her third litter, though only one cub from her first survived to adulthood. The second vanished during a flood, washed away before its eyes had even opened. And now here she is again, curled like a shield around these new lives. Her body tells the story. A missing chunk from one ear, a crescent scar over her haunch, a sag to her belly from milk and hunger. She is not old, but motherhood ages a lioness faster than years ever could. Her instincts are sharp, but she knows too well what can't be outrun. In one documented case, a lioness near Botswana's Savuti Channel was seen holding off two young males for over an hour, defending her single cub from all angles, hissing and charging, her body bloodied and her voice raw. The cub hid under a bush, trembling, until one male feigned retreat and circled behind. She saw too late. The aftermath was silent. She paced the clearing for hours, sniffing the ground, pawing at empty air. Her milk still flowed for days. Such moments are not rare. They are part of the pattern. In fact, it's estimated that over 80% of lion cubs die before the age of 2. Some fall to predators, others to starvation during drought. But most are killed by male lions before they ever learn to roar. And yet, despite the odds, lionesses try again. Their biology compels them, yes, but it's more than that.
In the way they groom their cubs, in the way they coo softly as the little ones suckle, in the way they fight back tears with fangs. There is something deeply maternal that science still doesn't fully understand. These aren't machines reproducing blindly. These are beings that grieve, who mourn in quiet, who lie beside the corpses of their cubs for days before the vultures force them to move on. And in a strange, almost poetic twist, it is often the mothers of fallen cubs who become the fiercest hunters. There are stories of lionesses abandoning pride life altogether, becoming rogue nomads. They hunt alone, live alone, and sometimes die alone. But they do so with a fire that only loss can forge. One was spotted trailing her own pride from a distance, never rejoining, but always near enough to ensure their safety from afar. As though, stripped of her own cubs, she adopted the entire pride as her phantom litter. There is no justice in the savannah, only rhythm, only repetition. And as rain finally breaks across the horizon, rattling the leaves with its heavy percussion, our lioness lifts her head to the wind. She smells something distant, not danger, not yet, but change. The scent of males she does not know, of lions on the march. She stands, slow and careful, and begins nudging her cubs awake. There is no time left. Her sanctuary must be abandoned, again. Because even in nature's most beautiful kingdom, a queen can lose everything in a heartbeat. And next, we'll follow her not in retreat, but in resistance, as she learns what it means to fight not for survival, but for vengeance. Because in the savannah, no pain goes unanswered forever.
The air is thick with the heat of late afternoon, the kind that turns even time to syrup.
Cicadas buzz like live wires strung across the dry acacia groves, and above them the sky hangs in stillness, stained a pale, humming blue. Dust devils spiral lazily across the open plains, and wildebeest graze in the far distance like drifting ink spots on a parchment of gold.
In this shimmer of silence, where everything seems to wait for something to break the stillness, 6 lionesses lie motionless in the shade of a collapsed termite mound. To an untrained eye, they are resting. To anyone else, they are a machine humming quietly in standby, a biological strike team woven together by lineage, obligation, and necessity. In the Lion Kingdom, it's easy to be distracted by the roars of males or the drama of a chase.
But within the pride's female ranks lies a more subtle and intricate web, a hierarchy shaped not by brute strength alone, but by age, timing, loyalty, and the quiet power of sisterhood. The lionesses are born into this network. They grow into it, hunt within it, raise their cubs under its watch, and one day, if they live long enough, are quietly pushed out of it.
As the pride's hunting unit, the lionesses operate like seasoned commandos. Each has a role: flankers who push prey from the sides, blockers who close gaps, chargers who initiate the kill. They don't speak. They don't need to. A tail flick, a glance, the almost imperceptible shift of a shoulder. This is their language. Unlike hyenas who bicker loudly over tactics or wild dogs who rely on yelping coordination, lionesses hunt in silence. It's an elegant paradox. A group of blood-stained predators relying on grace, not noise, to orchestrate death. In this silence, alliances are born, and sometimes rivalries sharpen like claws behind velvet paws. At the heart of this pride, the oldest lioness, a matron with a grizzled muzzle and clouded left eye, is slowly losing her place. She once led the hunts, took the choicest feeding position at kills, and was the first to scent danger. But time has a way of muting even the fiercest voices. Now she lags slightly behind on walks, her limping hind leg a permanent reminder of an old buffalo wound. The younger females still share space with her, still groom her affectionately, but their attention during hunts shifts increasingly to her daughter, a lean, ambitious lioness just entering her prime. Leadership in lion prides isn't formalized. There is no ceremony, no moment of coronation. It fades and transfers like wind changing direction, felt only when the dust starts to move. The pride's unity is essential, but it is not immune to tension. As cubs grow and food becomes scarce, cracks form. During a zebra kill the week before, one lioness held back, waiting for her moment, then lunged in too early, upsetting the pecking order. She was slapped down, not by a male, but by her closest sister. It was a gesture as much about dominance as it was about memory. Lions never forget social infractions. Grudges can simmer beneath the surface for years, only surfacing when age, hunger, or opportunity tips the balance. And when food is low, civility dissolves quickly. A sister today can be a rival at dusk. In rare instances, power struggles between lionesses can escalate into quiet excommunications. Not the flashy exile one might imagine. There's no brawl, no bloody confrontation. Instead, an older or injured female simply finds herself alone more often, left behind during a hunt, ignored when cubs cry. One morning, she wakes to find the pride has moved on without her. This isn't cruelty, it's strategy. In a pride where efficiency means survival, sentimentality is a luxury the savannah does not afford. But still, watching an elder lioness wander the plains alone, pausing now and then to listen for calls that will never come, is a sadness even the vultures seem to respect. There is also the curious phenomenon of cub swapping, when lionesses nurse each other's young, share mothering duties, and collectively raise the pride's next generation. On the surface, it seems like a gesture of altruism, but dig deeper and a subtler logic emerges. If cubs grow together, the loss of one mother won't doom them all. It's a backup plan, a social insurance policy disguised as compassion. However, even this nursery dynamic can fracture. One lioness may begin to favor her own cubs, subtly nudging others aside, hoarding milk, or leading her group away at night to secure a private spot. In one observed case, a lioness pretended not to hear the cries of another's cub, a calculated coldness in an otherwise warm system. It's a reminder that survival, even among sisters, often leans toward the selfish. And yet, for all this maneuvering and quiet betrayal, the lioness society holds together remarkably well. Their cooperation ensures the pride can take down prey far larger than any single predator could manage. Wildebeest, zebras, even young giraffes fall not to strength but to synchrony. It is this bond, complicated, tense, unspoken, that makes them not just formidable hunters, but an enduring force in the brutal mechanics of the wild. Tonight, the wind shifts again. The scent of a migrating herd drifts through the air, musky and rich. The pride stirs. They stretch slowly, in synchrony. Yawns, followed by lazy slaps of the tongue against thick paws. The elder matron is last to rise, blinking into the wind. Her daughter steps forward, ears perked, eyes locked on the movement in the distance. No one speaks. But when the hunt begins, the younger lioness takes the lead position. The change is official now, quietly accepted, quietly sealed. But hierarchies, even among sisters, are never set in stone. One failed hunt, one unexpected injury, one sudden twist of loyalty, and everything shifts again. In the next chapter, we leave the politics of the pride behind and follow a lioness on the edge, a fading queen whose body betrays her faster than time. When she can no longer keep up, when the pride begins to disappear into the tall grass ahead, we learn what it means to be forgotten, and what it takes to survive when sisterhood fades into silence. The light is different here, softer, almost shy, as if the savannah itself has turned its face away. A pale amber sun slides low over the land, throwing long, melancholic shadows across the broken crust of earth. Dust curls in the air like breath on a cold morning, though the air is not cold. It is dry, stinging, heavy with the scent of cracked bark and old blood. Grass hisses in the wind, brushing the ankles of acacia trees, whispering rumors of movement, the kind only those who live close to the ground understand. A single figure limps through this landscape, moving not with grace but with grim determination, her paw dragging slightly, every step carved from stubborn will. She is a lioness, once part of something larger, now reduced to a single heartbeat echoing across hostile territory. Her flank bears the rough scab of a fresh wound, a curved tear from a zebra's kick that should have ended her. It nearly did. The ribs beneath the skin rise like scaffold beams, her muscle now more memory than power. A faint line of dried blood clings to her foreleg, where the skin split days ago and has not quite closed. There is no grooming partner now, no sister to lick the wound clean, no cubs to trail her with clumsy steps. Only silence and the growing awareness that she no longer belongs anywhere. Old age in the wild is not marked by grey fur or aching bones. It is marked by delay, delay in reaction, delay in pain fading, delay in catching that final leap during a hunt. The pride notices before she does. They don't chase her away. They simply stop waiting. The morning hunt begins earlier. The pace is brisker. The kills are farther from shade. She tries to keep up for a while. But eventually the distance stretches, and one day she arrives to find only bones and flies, the meat long gone. There's a look lionesses share in that moment, confusion softened with the edge of realization. She understands, and the next morning she doesn't rise when they do. But her story does not end there, not yet. The land she now crosses is unfamiliar, the territorial borders invisible to most, but loud and dangerous to her. The scent of rival prides is etched into every bush, every urine-splashed trunk, every tuft of grass rolled in by younger, stronger lionesses. This is enemy ground. If she is caught, there will be no growled warnings or stare-downs. Lionesses do not tolerate strangers, especially not old ones. An intruding male might be seen as a threat or an opportunity. A female is only competition. If discovered, she will be attacked, swiftly, silently, and without hesitation. Still, she walks. Her movements are measured, each paw placed deliberately, not for stealth, but to conserve what little strength remains. Occasionally, she pauses to sniff at termite mounds, searching for grubs. Lions do not normally eat insects, but starvation is an education all its own. A few hours earlier, she found the half-rotted remains of a warthog, the bones picked almost clean by vultures. She gnawed at a sinew-covered femur until her jaw ached. Not for nourishment, but for the memory of a kill. Lions are carnivores, but they are also, when pushed far enough, surprisingly creative scavengers. One lioness was once seen following a porcupine trail not to hunt, but to eat the dung, rich in partially digested tubers. Necessity erases pride. There is irony here, of course. She was once the lead hunter of her pride, the flank runner with precision timing. She could predict a wildebeest's pivot 3 steps before it happened. She had even been the one to bring down a young buffalo almost on her own, dragging its collapsing bulk into a thicket while the others rushed in. That was less than 2 years ago. Now the same buffalo herds pass her by, no longer prey but parade, the calves tossing their heads playfully, their mothers unaware or uninterested in the tired creature watching them from the grass. Predators age in reverse dignity. Unlike elephants, who are cared for in their twilight, or orcas, who pass on wisdom through the pod, lions forget. An aging lioness has no legacy, no title. Her strength was her currency, and when it runs dry, so too does her value. The savannah does not offer pensions. As she limps toward a watering hole, the wind shifts again, and she freezes. Ears tilt forward, nostrils flare, the scent of hyenas, close. And they've smelled her too. The laughter begins low, rising like mocking drums through the brush. It's not humor, it's confidence. They know she's alone. Her best chance isn't to fight, it's to vanish. Slowly, painfully, she backs into a clump of thickets, biting down a whimper as thorns slice into her wounded side. The hyenas approach, sniffing the air, but they do not find her. Not tonight. One day, perhaps, but not tonight. Even now, her instincts are sharp. A lioness on the edge is still a lioness. Dusk falls heavy and fast. Dusk. The sky becomes a purple bruise, lit faintly by the first cold stars, and the land seems to flatten into silhouettes. She waits. The watering hole is close but not safe. Crocodiles linger there. Hyenas often patrol it, and yet she needs water. Her tongue is cracked, her breath ragged, her pads bleeding. But before she moves, she listens. Listens not just for danger, but for the silence between dangers. The rhythm of survival. And then she walks out, limping, hollow, yet still regal in that defiant way only dying queens carry. Her reflection in the water is distorted, rippling with fatigue. She drinks quickly, ears twitching with every splash. Somewhere beyond the reeds, a jackal whines. She does not respond. Her eyes are heavy, her limbs heavier, but her mind still burns. She has not given up, not yet, because sometimes, and it happens rarely, but it does happen, a lioness in exile survives. She finds an unclaimed pocket of land. She learns to kill birds, chase off jackals, steal scraps from leopards. One such lioness once raised an entire litter alone near the fringes of Etosha, feeding them on stolen guinea fowl and terrifying the local mongoose population. The pride that abandoned her would never know she lived on. Our lioness lies beneath a crooked tree now, her breath slow but steady, the wound no longer bleeding. The sky shimmers with distant constellations. She has made it through another day, a miracle stitched in scars and stubbornness. But the night is long, and something is watching her from the dark. In the next chapter, we'll follow the strange dance between survival and sacrifice, how lionesses, in the bloodiest moments, are often forced to become predators of their own kind. When the wild decides there's no room for all, and strength is not measured by power, but by how far one is willing to go. The savannah, under the pre-dawn stillness, feels like the held breath before a scream. The grass is wet with dew, but the air is already warming, scented faintly with dung, cracked bark, and something fainter still, the musk of life on the move. Somewhere ahead, wildebeest stir, their snorts muffled beneath the rustle of hooves brushing against tall grass. To a lioness, this sound is not just noise, it's possibility, risk, a gamble in motion. For her, every breath spent creeping through this chilled darkness is an investment, not in glory, but in calories. She hasn't eaten in 4 days. 4 days may not seem like much to humans spoiled by 3 meals and leftovers, but to a lioness whose body burns thousands of calories simply walking across her territory, 4 days is the edge of desperation. Her ribs are sharp beneath thinning fur, her breath draws long with fatigue, and her paws ache from cracked pads hardened by terrain that was never meant to be forgiving. But hunger has its own gravity, and it pulls her forward, silent as smoke, toward a herd unaware of the narrative that is about to unfold. Hunting, as it turns out, is not a parade of victories. It's not the fast-forwarded drama of nature shows, where the chase begins and ends in a clean takedown backed by orchestra strings. Real hunting is a mess of hesitation and math.
Lionesses must calculate wind direction, prey awareness, terrain contour, and proximity to cover, all while knowing they'll get one real chance.
One mistake, one misplaced paw snapping a twig, and hours of stalking evaporate into dust. Most hunts, in fact, end in failure. Studies show that lionesses fail more often than they succeed. A group of 5 might attempt to hunt every night for a week and still return with nothing but aching joints and bruised pride. Today, the lioness is not alone. 2 others flank her at a distance, part of the same hunting coalition, their movements synced like shadows cast by the same flickering flame. They position themselves in a wide arc, herding the wildebeest invisibly toward an imagined kill zone. The youngest of them, barely full-grown, missteps, her tail flicking too high above the grass. A calf catches sight of movement. Instantly the herd tenses, 1,000 hooves hold their breath, and then chaos.
Dust explodes into the air like a bomb of earth and terror.
Wildebeest stampede in every direction, their panicked calls ripping through the dawn like thunder. The lionesses spring forward, but it's already gone wrong. The herd hasn't funneled, it's scattered. Targets are too fast, too far. The lead lioness targets a calf, but a protective mother veers sideways with a bone-crunching swerve, intercepting her mid-pounce. The lioness tumbles, grass and sky spinning, her shoulder wrenching out of place for half a second before snapping back in. Pain flares like fire along her forelimb, but she rises anyway. There is no room for injury here, only regret and hunger. By the time the dust settles, the wildebeest are gone, a dark smudge on the horizon. The lionesses regroup, panting heavily, their sides rising and falling in tired unison. No blood, no feast, no reward. Just bruises and a handful of hoofprints in dry earth. The youngest looks confused, as if still waiting for the script to deliver the kill.
The eldest lowers herself to the ground, tongue lolling, body twitching with fatigue. They won't eat today. But still, they will try again.
As the sun climbs higher, so does the weight of exhaustion. Heat presses down like a punishment, drawing sweat from every living thing except the lions, who must pant instead, burning water and energy with each breath. They find shade beneath a scrub tree, but it is too narrow, too thorny, and shared with a clan of irritated baboons who shout obscenities until they're ignored. One lioness curls, licking the fur over a developing bruise on her ribs. Another limps, favoring a back leg. And yet none of this will slow them tomorrow, because hunger outranks pain. Injuries in the hunt are more common than many imagine. Prey animals are not passive. A zebra's kick can split a jaw in half. A wildebeest's horn can gut a lioness from belly to spine in a single upward lunge. And when the kill is won, if it's won, that's not even the end of it. The real fight often begins once the blood hits the air. Hyenas arrive like storm clouds. Jackals dance at the fringes.
And if there's a male lion nearby, he'll saunter in and take the lion's share, leaving the hunters, the bleeding, limping, exhausted hunters, to fight each other for scraps.
There's an elegance in the lioness's design, but also a cruelty. Her body is built not for endurance, but for sudden force. She lacks the stamina of wild dogs or cheetahs. Her muscles, though powerful, overheat quickly. Her claws are retractable, good for traction, poor for sustained gripping. Her success relies on teamwork, terrain, and timing more than any supernatural strength. And when any one of those variables fails, the hunt crumbles. Yet they persist, not because they are fearless, but because the alternative is slower, quieter, and far more painful. Starvation doesn't roar. It whispers. It seeps in through the skin, dulls the eyes, makes cubs sleep longer and cry less. It makes lionesses do strange things. There are stories of desperate lions turning scavenger, chasing vultures from carcasses too rotted to move maggots. One lioness was even observed trying to hunt a porcupine. She succeeded, but it cost her an eye and most of her front paw. As twilight returns, the lionesses rise once more. Their movements are stiff but deliberate. A new herd has been spotted in the distance. Hartebeest this time. Not ideal. Faster than wildebeest. Less predictable. But desperation sharpens resolve. They fall into position again, vanishing one by one into the wind-brushed grass, tails low, ears forward, eyes unblinking.
The world narrows to scent, sound, and hope. And this time, who knows? Maybe the wind will favor them. Maybe the calf will stumble.
Maybe the old matriarch will remember a pattern in the terrain the others don't. In the wild, survival is a game of inches, of breath held just long enough, of pain buried just deep enough to pounce again. Because out here, blood is never just the end of a story. It's the currency that buys one more day.
And in the next chapter, we will turn our gaze toward the creature who watches the lioness from the shadows, a figure draped in power and arrogance, who eats first, fights last, and yet is crowned the king. For if the lioness bleeds for survival, the lion claims her throne without lifting a paw, and nature, as always, looks on without judgment.
The light is cruel this morning, striking the savannah not with warmth, but with an unfiltered glare that scalds everything it touches.
Dust hangs in the air like powdered rust, disturbed by a slow, lazy breeze that barely cools the land.
A single lion lounges beneath a battered shepherd's tree, his mane rippling in the light wind, catching glints of gold and mahogany like strands of royalty woven from fire. His body sprawls in an almost theatrical pose of indifference, one paw tossed over the other, his eyes half-lidded in a trance between sleep and sovereignty. Around him, the air hums with flies, and somewhere beyond the thickets, the pride he lords over is already at work. But he does not stir. He is the king. At least, that's what the world chooses to believe. But if you look past the mane and into the workings of the pride, a different monarchy reveals itself. One run not on presence, but persistence. While he stretches and yawns beneath the tree, the lionesses are miles away, already stalking the bushland for prey, their stomachs hollow and their bodies running on determination alone. Their hunt is not optional. The pride's survival and his next meal depends on it. He, on the other hand, can afford the luxury of patience. After all, why burn calories chasing zebra when your wives will serve it on a bed of grass and bone? To outsiders, he looks majestic. To the lionesses, he is an obligation wrapped in muscle. He offers protection, but only when the threat is worthy of his ego. Hyenas harassing the pride? He might flick an ear. A leopard lurking nearby, likely beneath his notice. But introduce a rival male. Now that is worth rising for. His battles are chosen carefully, and only when dominance is at stake. Even then he prefers intimidation over violence, roaring his territory into trembling submission rather than putting fang to flesh. And if blood must be spilled, he expects the glory, not the wounds. The lioness, meanwhile, bleeds in silence. It is she who patrols the boundary under moonlight, scent marking along well-worn trails while scanning for danger with every footfall. It is she who faces the hyena clan when they come laughing in the dark, drawn by the scent of vulnerable cubs. A group of spotted hyenas, strong in numbers and notorious for harassment, can kill lion cubs with chilling precision, and lionesses know it. When the clan arrives, snarling and probing the pride's defenses, it is the lioness who lunges first, fangs bared, body coiled. She fights not out of pride, but necessity. Her cubs, tucked behind a fallen log or hidden beneath her flank, are everything. And while the male might eventually saunter into the confrontation, his presence is rarely proactive. He shows up when the outcome is all but certain. Even at mealtime, the king's appetite is a declaration. Once a kill is made, after the lionesses have tracked, flanked, chased, tackled, and suffocated a struggling antelope, he arrives last and eats first. Not with haste, but entitlement. He growls if interrupted, swats away younger lions, and plants his forepaws beside the carcass as if it had simply fallen from the sky by his will. The lionesses wait, stomachs groaning, while he tears into the belly of the animal they nearly died bringing down. One might think they'd challenge him, but they don't. Not because they are weak, but because the consequences are costly. A male lion can crush a skull with one bite. A swipe from his paw can knock a lioness unconscious. They've seen it before. He is, biologically speaking, necessary. His roar can carry over 5 miles, a sonic warning to intruders. His scent marks the boundaries that say, occupied, move on. His genes are selected by centuries of brutal male-on-male competition, and when cubs are born under his reign, they are safe from the violence of infanticidal takeovers. In this regard, he is not useless, he is a shield, but like many shields, he is heavy, immobile, and expects to be carried. and carried he is. Lionesses spend up to 20 hours a day moving, walking, stalking, relocating cubs, circling waterholes or patrolling territory. The males? Barely half that. Their energy conservation is legendary, though some might call it laziness with a mane. In one study, male lions were found to sleep up to 20 hours per day, especially in hot weather, a luxury that would kill a lioness who can't afford to skip even one hunt. Yet it is his image, yawning in the sunlight, mane flaring like a sunburst, staring into the distance with unearned wisdom, that becomes the postcard of the African savannah. There is an old joke among wildlife guides: if the lion is walking, the females are probably watching. If he's roaring, the females are likely rolling their eyes. But perhaps the greatest irony is this: when danger truly comes, a drought, a poaching threat, a collapsing ecosystem, it is not the male's dominance that matters. It is the lioness's adaptability. She will shift her hunting schedule. She will teach her cubs new paths to water. She will brave crocodile-infested rivers if there is even a sliver of hope for food. She will migrate if she must. She will endure. And when he is finally challenged by a younger coalition, when the roar of youth and ambition echoes across the plains, he will fight. Yes, but not forever. Eventually, he will lose. He will be exiled, limping and alone, a king without a kingdom. And when that happens, it is she who will raise the next generation, even if the father's bones are bleaching in the sun a few miles away. In the end, the lioness lives not in his shadow, but beyond it. She is the system's architect, its engineer, its silent power source. He may roar louder, but her whispers carry further, through lineage, through labor, through sacrifice. He is the headline. She is the whole story. But as the wind shifts across the grasslands once again, carrying with it the scent of hyena musk and distant rain, the lion remains still. He stretches, yawns, and rolls onto his back, belly up, unbothered. Somewhere in the bush, a lioness crouches in the shadows, flanks twitching, eyes locked on a grazing impala. The difference is stark. He sleeps for the pride. She bleeds for it. And next, we follow that silent guardian into the fringes of the pride, where the elderly are forgotten and the young are pushed to the edge. Because even among sisters, there are limits to loyalty. And when the pride is full, someone must walk away. The horizon burns orange, not with fire but with dust and distance, that unreachable shimmer where heat and land blur like forgotten promises. The savannah here is quiet, but not peaceful. It's the quiet of things that no longer speak, where bones bleach in silence and the trees lean just slightly away from the wind, as if whispering secrets only vultures understand. There is no songbird chorus, no roaring lions, only the ticking heat, the soft breath of insects, and somewhere, faint but deliberate, the sound of paw steps pressing into dry earth. A lone lioness moves across this margin between territories, her head low, her ribs casting sharp shadows beneath thinning fur. She is not hunting. Not really. Her gait is too stiff, her eyes too tired. This is not the glide of a predator, but the shuffle of a displaced queen. Her hips roll awkwardly as she walks, favoring one leg that never fully healed, and flies gather at the old wound near her shoulder, the scab reopened by thorn bushes and time. She's been walking for days, not toward anything, just away. Once she belonged. Her scent marked cubs who climbed over her with the clumsiness of innocence. Her calls were answered by sisters who flanked her on hunts, circled her in sleep. She had a place, a rank, a name whispered on the wind when the pride called itself home. But the rules of the pride are written in silence, and when those rules shift, when you become too slow, too hurt, too unpredictable, no one announces your departure. They simply stop looking back. The hunt begins a little earlier. The pace grows a little faster. One night you fall asleep under the acacia, and the next morning, the pride has vanished. Exile is not an event. It is a fading. Alone, a lioness transforms. The routines of pride life, coordinated hunts, grooming, shared vigilance, disintegrate into a solitary rhythm where food is a gamble, sleep is interrupted, and safety is a memory. At first, she tries to keep hunting as she did before, crouching in the open, tracking herds like a shadow. But the prey now feels her desperation, her uneven steps, her hesitation, and they run. Every time, they run. Soon she gives up trying to kill what is strong and starts seeking what is weak. Carrion, bones, unguarded nests. One afternoon, she trails a clan of hyenas for miles, hoping for scraps. They lead her nowhere, laughing as they go. Hunger becomes hallucination. She starts to chase mirages. A shadow between trees that turns out to be wind-blown grass. A calf's bleat that is just a bird mimicking sorrow. She eats beetles and regurgitated pellets. She chews on bark. And then one morning, she makes a choice. A line she never thought she'd cross, drawn now in the dust by starvation and madness. A cub, not her own, wandering too far from its mother. Still spotted, still blinking with milk-drunken innocence. It's not a hunt exactly, it's something darker. A lioness killing another lion's child is rare but not unheard of. Usually, it's done by invading males or rival prides. But sometimes, very rarely, it is done by a lioness who no longer recognizes the rules. A lioness too long alone. She does not kill to eat. She kills because she is starving not just in body, but in meaning. The pride has forgotten her. Why should she respect its offspring? And when she walks away, blood on her chin, the cub's cries already fading into the baking air, there is no triumph, only emptiness. Even the vultures hesitate, unsure whether to follow her or fear her. Nature doesn't punish this act. Nature simply absorbs it, another line added to the ledger of survival. But she is not entirely alone in her madness. Somewhere out here in the borderlands, in this wilderness of outcasts, others roam like ghosts. Lionesses too old to nurse, too bitter to groom. Young ones who challenged a matriarch too soon and were driven out. Mothers who lost every cub and could no longer bear the sound of others nursing. These lionesses become nomads, rogue forces that drift between territories, unwelcome in all. Sometimes they form loose associations, scavenger groups bound not by trust, but by mutual exhaustion. They don't share kills, they just take turns not stealing. They sleep in shifts, backs never touching. One such group, documented in southern Kenya, consisted of 4 lionesses, each limping, scarred, and bearing different tribal scent marks. They didn't communicate, they didn't groom each other, but they hunted together like a pack of old soldiers, relying on their collective damage to create chaos in prey herds. For months they survived like this, until a territorial male found them. 3 fled, 1 didn't. Her body was found days later beneath a mopan tree, partially eaten, not by the male, but by jackals who could smell the end before it happened. And yet, even in exile, there is resilience. Some lionesses adapt so well to solitude that they develop new hunting styles, ambushes from riverbeds, nocturnal attacks on bush pigs, even daytime raids on nesting birds. One lioness was observed using reeds to mask her scent while stalking storks, an improvised tactic born from watching crocodiles do the same. Nature, after all, rewards creativity, and madness in the right conditions is just evolution in a hurry. But for most, the story doesn't end with reinvention. It ends with fading tracks, a whimper mistaken for wind, and bones scattered beneath the grass. The savannah doesn't eulogize, it recycles. What was once a queen is now soil for termites, calcium for hyena teeth, silence for her sisters who never spoke her name again. Still, on certain nights, when the wind is low and the stars blink through dust like ancient eyes, one might see a lone lioness pacing the edge of a pride she once called hers. She watches from the hilltop, scenting the cubs, the new mothers, the old routines now carried by others. She doesn't approach, she doesn't roar, she simply turns and walks away. Because sometimes the wild doesn't kill you all at once. Sometimes it forgets you until you disappear. And in the next chapter we descend even further into the final kingdom of pain, where death itself becomes the lioness's home, and glory is found not in dominance or survival, but in the quiet endurance of loss. For in this final act, even water becomes a trap, and every oasis might be her last. The last light of the day crawls slowly across the savannah, its long fingers brushing the tips of yellow grass with the faintest shimmer, like gold leaf peeling from an ancient manuscript. A quiet settles over the land. Not the comforting hush of peace, but a tension so still it hums beneath the silence. The temperature drops fast here. Heat evaporates from the cracked earth, replaced by the breath of night creatures. Crickets stir. Jackals yip distantly. And above, the sky deepens to a velvet black, the stars blooming one by one like the eyes of old gods watching without mercy. A lioness lies in this stillness, her body half hidden beneath a crooked fever tree, motionless except for the occasional twitch of a torn ear. Dust clings to her fur, cracked around the muzzle where old blood has dried. Her ribs shift with every shallow breath, rising slowly, unevenly, as if the air no longer wishes to stay inside her. She is not asleep, nor is she fully awake. She is somewhere in between, caught in the slow dissolve between queen and carrion. There is no glory in a lioness's end. No throne to fall from, no gathered pride to mourn her passing, no poetry, no pride. Death comes to her in fragments, a limp that slows her enough to miss a kill, a gash that festers from a buffalo's horn, the slow starvation that eats muscle before it eats bone. Even those who ruled their prides, raised generations of cubs, orchestrated masterful hunts beneath moonlight, they die alone. And when they do, the savannah does not flinch. It swallows their story like it swallows everything. The truth is, most lionesses do not live long. While males might be dethroned violently and wander into exile, it is the females who die in the service of survival. Some perish in hunts, broken legs from charging prey, shattered spines from failed leaps. Others die defending their cubs from predators far more agile than them. And many, perhaps most, simply wither when they can no longer contribute. If they are too old to hunt, too slow to follow, too weak to protect, the pride moves on. Without anger, without gratitude, just necessity. Sometimes death comes not from age, but betrayal. Rival prides are brutal to outsiders. When lionesses stumble into unfamiliar territory, seeking food perhaps, or returning to a place that once was theirs, they are met not with challenge, but with blood. Lionesses kill with purpose. They go for the throat, rip the spine, leave no room for retreat. There are no warnings, no second chances. A mother of 4 cubs might be torn apart in minutes, her body abandoned in the dust while her attackers return to their own young, licking blood from their paws like nothing has changed. Even in death, she cannot rest. The moment her heart stops beating, the scavengers descend. First the flies, always the flies, arriving before the body cools. Then the jackals, timid but persistent, nosing through fur for the softest parts. Hyenas follow, bold and eager, cracking bone and dragging limbs through the grass with their usual cackling chorus. Finally, the vultures arrive in swarms, falling from the sky like black leaves, each one impatient for a turn. Within hours, the lioness is no longer a lioness. She is a scent, a shadow, a story unraveling into dust and bone. But here lies the paradox, the quiet rebellion of nature's cruelest balance. Though her end is graceless, her life shaped the pride. She was the architect of survival, the silent general of hunts, the nurse, the warrior, the teacher. Every cub that lived, every meal that was shared, every predator held at bay, it was her doing. She is not the roaring centerpiece of documentaries, not the profile etched on coins or banners, but she is the foundation. The reason the species still moves across this land with power. The next generation owes everything to a lioness who now feeds beetles and vultures. There's a kind of strange nobility in this cycle. Not the human kind, built on memory and honor, but a wild nobility. Fierce, anonymous, eternal. She asks for no legacy, yet leaves behind dozens. Her daughters will inherit her tactics, her instincts, even her scent. Her sons will rise for a moment, roar loudly, and likely fall. But her legacy walks every day in the paws of cubs who never knew her face, but carry her blood. And sometimes, just sometimes, death itself turns predator. The land has its own appetite. Droughts dry the watering holes, turning savannas into skeletal plains. Parasites grow in the flesh of the weak. The sun becomes an enemy. In such times, even the strongest lioness begins to drift, not from injury or battle, but because the land no longer feeds her. One step becomes 2. The body becomes lighter, and not in the way one hopes. And when she finally lays down, it is not in surrender but in understanding. There is nothing left to fight, but not all die gently. Some go out snarling. There was one lioness, documented in the Ngorongoro crater, who fought off 2 hyenas while half paralyzed by a spinal injury. She didn't save her life, but she bought herself a few more hours of dignity. Another was found days after being presumed dead, feasting on the carcass of a drowned elephant, her face covered in mud and rot, but her eyes still burning. She died days later, but not before feeding again. These are the footnotes of survival, moments of defiance that never make the posters but define the species more than any roar. Now, as night deepens and the wind rises, the lioness beneath the fever tree takes one final breath. No one witnesses it. No cub whimpers. No sister turns her head. The earth is still, the sky wide. Only the grasses move, dancing slightly in the breeze, as if bowing to something that once ruled here in silence. By morning, she will be gone. Her bones scattered, her story erased by weather and worms, but her pride will hunt. Her cubs will walk. The rhythm continues. Because in this kingdom of predators, death is not a failure. It is the tax paid for legacy, and she has paid it in full. But even now, something stirs. For as one life fades, another cries out in the darkness, small, blind, and newly born. In the next chapter, we return not to death, but to rebirth, to the lioness who raises life amid all odds, and the tender ferocity that defines her final eternal role, the uncrowned mother of the wild. The savannah exhales under a lavender sky, the final breath of daylight spilling softly over the land like liquid nostalgia. A soft breeze moves through the golden grass, brushing the plains with the care of memory, carrying with it the musky scent of dust, sun-warmed hide, and the distant tang of something gone. The world is not loud now. The birds have quieted. The insects hum in low rhythms. The lioness moves through this silence, not fast, not slow, but with a rhythm carved by years, as though the earth itself has adjusted to her pace. Her shadow stretches long behind her, trailing like the story she carries and the ghosts of every hunt she led, every cub she raised, every kill she bled for. She is not young. The muscles once fluid with fire now stretch with the grace of habit, not haste. Her flanks carry the faint roadmap of a life lived in full, scars that speak without sound, lines etched into fur like ancient script. Her paws, wide and calloused, still land with the precision of purpose, even if the bones beneath now ache when the wind turns cold. She is alone, but she is not lost. The pride is somewhere behind her, sleeping beneath the trees, bellies full thanks to a hunt she started. She could stay. She could rest. But tonight she walks, as she has done for years, drawn forward by instinct and a quiet need for solitude, as if even queens must sometimes leave the palace to remember what they're made of. No one calls her queen. There is no coronation for lionesses, no rituals, no roars of approval. Yet she has ruled more lives than any crowned head in the animal kingdom. She has made decisions that meant the difference between survival and starvation. She has nursed dying cubs through drought, stared down charging buffalo, led hunts through fire-scorched fields, and laid her body between danger and innocence more times than can be counted. She never asked to lead, but the pride followed her. Not because she demanded it, but because she earned it. From the day she was born, her life was a story of inheritance, not of land, but of labor. As a cub, she was carried in the mouth of a mother who once walked this same path. As a sub-adult, she trailed behind her sisters, learning how to move through grass without a sound, how to wait longer than prey could bear, how to read the twitch of an impala's ear as if it were scripture. As a mother, she knew the cost of birth, knew how the world devours the weak and tests the strong, not with victory, but with repetition. And now, older, wiser, she wears her resilience like a second mane. Still, few will ever know her name. Unlike the roaring males whose images decorate magazine covers, whose dramatic fights are replayed in slow motion on documentaries, her victories are private, her sacrifices invisible. There is no camera roll for the night she lay awake, ears tilted toward the distant cough of a leopard, her body curled tightly around 3 sleeping cubs. No footage of the time she hunted 3 nights in a row while nursing wounds, chasing each failure through thornbrush and riverbeds, until finally, the 4th hunt gave her a kill just large enough to silence her cubs' cries for one more day. There are no celebrations for that kind of heroism, only survival. Yet everything the pride is, every healthy cub tumbling through the grass, every confident young lioness learning to stalk,
every sleeping male full from a morning feast. All of it stems from her. She is the backbone, the memory, the sacrifice. She is the unnamed engineer of the ecosystem. Remove her and the pride collapses. Not in flames, but in fragments, slowly, quietly, irreversibly. And still she walks. The sun sinks behind the acacias, slipping like a coin into the horizon. Shadows stretch. Night stirs. But she does not rush. She pauses at a small rise, lifting her head. The wind brushes her whiskers, tugging gently at her fur. Somewhere nearby, hyenas giggle at nothing. Farther still, an elephant calf lets out a startled trumpet. Life continues. Life always continues. But for this moment, this brief and unspectacular moment, there is only her silhouette against the dusk. A curve of muscle and memory standing beneath the cosmos, uncelebrated but eternal. Science will not name her. The tourists will not photograph her. But the land remembers. The grass she's pressed flat with 100 hunts. The rivers she's crossed. Cubs clinging to her back. The trees she's sheltered beneath after storms. The soil remembers the feel of her paws. The wind remembers her scent. The prey remembers her stare. And perhaps that is enough. There will come a time when she no longer walks, when her bones surrender and her breath thins into the sky, when vultures gather in quiet tribute and her body is returned to the land that shaped it. But even then, she will not vanish. She will echo in every lioness who rises after her, who hunts through pain, who defends without question, who gives more than she receives. The legacy of a lioness is not carved into stone. It is whispered into blood. Tonight, she disappears into the dusk. Not as a shadow, not as a memory, but as a truth. The lioness never ruled, but she was the kingdom, and the kingdom endures.